overcrowded accommodation. And the reason they're in overcrowded accommodation, you know as well as I do, because not only have council houses been sold off, we've not been building them. So John Healey, our Secretary of State in terms of housing, is now saying, yes, our programme will be 1 million new homes. And we want half of them, and we want to be proud of this, we want half of them to be council houses.
Yeah.
And others have heard this, and sometimes there's a bit of a Monty Python story. I was born in Liverpool. I was born off Scotland Road. I've lost the accent because we moved south for work. But when I was born off Scotland Road, my mum was a cleaner, my dad a docker. We lived in, sociological studies now say one of the largest slums in Western Europe. We just call it home. When we moved out into a council prefab, and then we moved into a council house. Parker Morris standards. My brother and I had our own bedrooms for the first time, garden front and rear, etc. And it was a day of celebration. There are millions out there on waiting lists, waiting for that day of celebration. We're going to give them that day of celebration. The other issue that comes up time and time again is the levels of poverty within our country. We've got 4 million children out there living in poverty. To have the UN rapporteur on poverty come to this country and denounce it for levels of not just poverty but destitution is a disgrace. Absolute disgrace. Fifth richest country in the world. We can't house our population. We can't feed them because there's 1,200,000 now each year going for food banks to just be able to feed themselves. And at the same time, we have that level of destitution within our society because of poverty and because of low wages. 2/3 of those kids in poverty are in families where someone's at work. That demonstrates how low wages are and how insecure work is. Nearly 1 million workers on 0-hour contracts. You know why that's the case. You know why wages are so low. It's because trade union rights have been undermined in this country by Tories every time they come into power. So what we've said straightforward, we were using the Institute of Employment Rights Manifesto as an example, when we go back into government, we'll restore trade union rights. Within the first 100 days, we'll scrap the Trade Union Act that the Tories introdued to undermine democracy within unions and in workplaces themselves. We'll restore sectoral collective bargaining, and we'll introduce a real living wage of £10 an hour. And in that way, we'll lift as a result of that, often that in-work poverty, that we have people then having to go through the universal credit system, which has impoverished people, degraded them, and is, to be frank, brutal. So what we've said, yes, what we want is a system that works for everybody, a real social security safety net that lifts people out of poverty and supports them as they go into work. My view, we should scrap the bloody thing. I've had enough of the number of people turning into mice. And I swear about it because I'm so angry. I represent a working class multicultural community on the edge of West London. I've lived there 40 years. I've never seen the level of human suffering in that community that we now have as a result of what's going on. And the people they've targeted the most, 80% of the austerity measures have fallen on the shoulders of women.
Yeah.
But the group they've targeted the most are disabled people. I was there at the Foundation of Disabled People Against the Cuts. I can remember my first case from the Work Capability Assessment. A postman who worked for Royal Mail, who'd been, by his company, assessed as incapable of working, assessed by the company called Atos, by the company.